Welcome back to Hysteria, the podcast for childless cat ladies who loved Sweet Valley High. Katie, did you see the news? Francine Pascal, 181 books, passed away this week.
I didn't see that.
Yep, I know. Sweet Valley High. It's like Francine, Beverly, Judy. What else was there when we were growing up?
I don't think I ever read Sweet Valley High.
Well, it didn't come out till 83, so.
Oh, well, come on. I was at 83. I was, at 34, something like that.
Well, all right. It was a moment for some people.
Okay. All right. Well, may she rest in peace. And also the guy who invented tiramisu died on Sunday.
Really?
Yes. A chef from Italy who invented the delectable treat made of ladyfingers, mascarpone cheese, coffee, cocoa, eggs, vanilla, and something else. I was reading all about him today.
Based on that recollection, does that mean that there is an Instagram story of yours in our future where you make a tiramisu?
No, because you know what? I don't really love tiramisu.
Really? I do.
You do?
I like it. I find it to be a light, tasty dessert for like winter.
Oh, maybe so. I don't know. It just would never be my first, second, or third choice.
Okay. All right. Well, you know what? Our first choice here is news. See, there's a real segue. Okay, Katie, since you were here last week, so much has happened. First, we're breaking Zoom from coast to coast. All right, the white women got on Zoom for Kamala, which, by the way, missed opportunity. Karen's for Kamala would have been a much funnier
that would have been
name.
Funny.
Wouldn't that be funny?
That would have been hilarious.
So the white women for Kamala raised about $11 million. Over 200,000 women joined. Then the white dudes got in on it. 180,000. Yes.
Jeff Bridges made an appearance. Now, I just read a piece in The Atlantic knowing we were going to have all these discussions where someone was sort of turned off by sort of the racial segregation of these meetings. How do you feel about that? I mean, he did make some legitimate points. He said he appreciated being on White Dudes for Kamala and some of the things they said. But he's like, why does it have to be black women, white dudes? And why can't it just be dudes and women? Thoughts?
Sure. Agree, that's probably good. But since these were just exercises of showing up for her, I feel like however you want to show up, right? Yeah. I mean, if you're going to raise 11, if the white ladies the white women was very specific, right? Because white women over the past 30, 40 years have been voting Republican,
Exactly.
And
I think he probably missed the memo that Hillary Clinton lost white women.
Right.
And that this was a little tongue-in-cheek, as was White Dudes.
Right.
But I thought he made some valid points. But anyway,
I think it makes sense.
How was the white women, and were you on that call, and what was it like?
I was on the white women, and it kept crashing because so many people joined it. And so I popped back on as Pink, the singer, was speaking from 30,000 feet over Sweden, I think, from her concert. And the thing that I appreciate, and the person, whoever wrote that in The Atlantic, I kind of get it. But the vibes on the white women call and on the other calls, I would imagine, based on Bradley Whitford being interviewed today talking about the white dudes call, which he said was a glorious rainbow of beiges, is people are coming with the best of intentions. They're excited. They want to support. I think a lot of people who realize that maybe they didn't do everything they could in 2016. Mm-hmm. If you've been carrying that
guilt. Yeah.
And if you've been feeling that guilt, get out there, get on a call, donate money, do some GOTV, put a lawn sign out front. People who maybe were a little reserved last time, I think are just running through the tape this time.
I agree. And I think it's awesome. And that brings me to another issue that I thought we could talk about, Alyssa. And this is the whole idea of Democrats now calling Trump and JD Vance weird. And I know it's something that you're interested in. And Tom Friedman wrote a short column about it. I guess Tim Walz, is that?
Yes.
I don't know that much about Tim Walz. I feel like he might be the VP choice.
He's been out there killing it. I mean, he's been everywhere. I'm going to say I don't think he's the VP choice because he's been doing more cable than anybody else on the list. And I'm like, if he's the choice, I don't know. I think I would probably stay off cable. But should we talk a little bit about what Tom Friedman said?
Yes, let's talk about that, and then we'll talk about the VP stakes.
So Friedman basically said Democrats were going to regret calling Trump weird. And he said, quote, "It is now a truism that if Democrats have any hope of carrying key swing states and overcoming Trump's advantages in the Electoral College, they have to break through to white, working class, non-college educated men and women who, if they have one thing in common, feel denigrated and humiliated by the Democratic liberal college educated elites." And he then declared it the dumbest message that we could seize on, that Democrats could seize on right now. Now, here's the thing. In theory, okay, Alyssa of many years ago would agree with him. Alyssa of many years ago couldn't believe that Trump used the White House for his convention. You know, like, I am a person of rules and the establishment. I'm a basic bitch, Katie, and I know that about myself. But this is working because you know what? They're fucking weird. Like, this is all weird. JD Vance. If JD Vance had just been malevolent, right? If he had just said these things about cat women and how people who don't have children don't have a stake in the country, which, by the way, Mayor Pete crushing the response to that, saying
Mayor Pete crushing it all over the place.
Saying when I was in Afghanistan and didn't have kids, I more than had a stake in this country. And I think that JD Vance, and here's why I also think that Tom Friedman might be wrong. So JD Vance could have, Trey Gowdy on Fox actually gave him the running room to be like, hey, did you really mean that? And he was like, fuck yeah, I meant that. Like, he doubled down on it and called Jennifer Aniston like disgusting for her coming out against him and saying his comments were cruel.
He also doubled down with Megyn Kelly. And by P.S., Donald Trump doubled down on his Christian remarks with Laura Ingraham and never really answered the question as far as what he meant by that if they voted, they'd never have to vote again. I still don't know what he meant.
No, but so here's how I see it. We're using a word like weird. Weird is not the worst word on the planet. You know, it is for the things that Republicans have come out with and said. And the fact that so many Republicans agree they're being weird. Meghan McCain was on a podcast saying, what are you doing? Stop. It's not that they are coming out and staking out policy positions and saying, this is what we believe, and we'll debate whoever wants to debate us. They're saying that women who don't have kids aren't people. They're doubling down on it. There's nothing that they're saying that is essential to the election, that's informing voters. It's weird, Katie. So I feel like if we were calling them weird and what they were doing was something other than weird, I would agree with him. But in this instance, I think also that a lot of people haven't been able to put their finger on what is so uncomfortable about all this, and calling it weird just kind of works.
Yeah, and I also think two things can be true, right? You can think their behavior and their rhetoric is weird, but you can also do a better job of reaching out to disaffected voters who are non-college educated white people. I think non-college educated white men and women in particular who feel left out. And I think Pete is really good at that. And I think he could lean into that more. And I think that there needs to be a greater connection between the working class and the Democratic Party. Because let's face it, Alyssa, the Democrats have kind of lost the working class. And it was never that way during all my years of covering politics. I mean, you had the head of the Teamsters at the RNC. You have people buying into this notion that Republicans care about dinner table issues much more than Democrats. And these narratives, I think, have become too deeply entrenched about liberal college-educated elites who are condescending, probably started with the deplorable comment that Hillary Clinton, I'm sure, regrets saying now. But I feel like they can't just give up on that voting bloc. They need to make a much stronger connection to working men and women, working class men and women. The middle class has been obviously gutted, but saying, hey, we care about you. We care about your issues. We know a lot of things have really been hard.
Right.
Globalization, manufacturing. But this is what, and Pete is good at this too. This is what we're going to do. And this is how we're going to help. I just want to see her with a welding hat on, working with regular Joes.
Well, and I think so here, it's interesting that you say that, Katie, because a couple things. One, I feel like, we've been dealing with Trump since 2015 at this point, right? That's
right.
9 years. And
nine
in those
long years.
9 long, look at these crow's feet. And I think that part of the problem, on the one hand, Democrats need to be doing a better job, but also the whole foundation of Trump's candidacies have just been grievance. Like, if you're doing badly, it's not because of what's happening in this country. It's because something's been taken away from you.
Right.
And
it's they're bad people to blame. Like Frank Bruni says in his book, The Age of Grievance, which I highly recommend. I love Frank Bruni. Shameless plug. I don't get anything from this. I just happen to really, really like him. And it's a great book.
Right. And so he has doubled down on that. And then also things that Democrats were really good at. Like, do you remember, go back, and this again, not shameless plug, but Barack Obama in 2007 and 2008, it was such a different time of campaigning because we were insurgent. So we had to work for every vote, which meant town halls. Katie, when is the last time you saw a town hall on television, televised, no filtered questions? And that's where the moments come from, right? That's when John McCain had his moment where the woman was like, Barack Obama's a Muslim.
Don't do that, he said. Do not say that. He's an American.
And that's a lesson.
I know. I love that clip. I've gone back and watched that. Everyone should see John McCain, as Alyssa said, stopping someone from calling Barack Obama, what did she say, a Muslim, he's going to destroy our country, blah, blah, blah. And he interrupted her and said, wait, stop. And he basically dressed her down. And I loved him for that.
It was a lesson in civility, but also you saw both Obama and McCain outside their comfort zone, close to people, talking to people. And because of COVID, because of things that have happened in the world, we're not seeing that because politicians aren't doing that, which means they're not having those interactions, which are so informative.
Well, I mean, Kamala Harris did have that huge rally in Atlanta.
Which was amazing last night.
Yeah, and I thought her speech was really good. And I think she has come a long way in terms of her presentation, or maybe she just didn't have enough opportunities to kind of be herself in a very public forum. But I would love to see more town hall meetings. But gosh, that's just not going to happen, is it?
Kamala has 90 some days at this point. So
maybe she will. Maybe she'll do something on CNN or on NBC or ABC.
Or even her own, like when in Obama land, we had town halls that we set up. People could ask their questions. But for her, so there was an interesting thing, just to go to that rally last night for a minute. I got to tell you, Katie, look, vice presidents never have huge moments. That's not the function of being vice president. But when she stood up on stage last night, 10,000 people, Megan Thee Stallion as her opening act, and then said, if you've got something to say it to my face. And I was like, oh my God, do you think she will be able to goad Trump into a debate?
Maybe. So I guess the last time we talked, he was saying it should be on Fox.
Right.
And then I think since then, haven't they said they're not going to debate?
Yes. Well, he's like, I don't know. I don't think so. This is, he's been very obfuscating, about whether he's going to do it. But if she goes out there every day and is like, say it to my face, I swear I'd make T-shirts that said, say it to my face. I would have people, if I were the Harris campaign, they have enough to do. They don't need my advice. I would have placards outside his rallies that say it to my face, because I do think he'll lose his shit and decide to debate her, for better or worse, for him.
That would be interesting. It's like Gretchen Whitmer when he called her that woman from Michigan, and there were T-shirts made that said that woman from Michigan, and they sold like, crazy. in the state. So yeah, maybe that will happen. I don't know. I wish it would, because I feel like the American people deserve that.
They do. I want to see a debate. This is a real deep cut, but back in the early 2000s when I worked for John Kerry, I watched the Kerry Weld debates. You know, when he debated Bill Weld, there were like 10 debates. It's like, let's see who's got it. You know, we deserve to see it.
But also, you do want to hear about policy. You know, you do want to hear, ask some interesting, important questions about all kinds of things, right? And I just do feel like the more I've been reading, the more I'm sensing, and I could live in a bubble, Alyssa, maybe I do, but I get the sense that right now in 2024, Donald Trump and JD Vance are really out of step with the American people on reproductive rights. They're out of step. Like the moronic thing he said about childless women and cat ladies. I mean, if you dissect that, he's so out of touch with what a family looks like today.
Right.
What blended families look like, what gay families look like, what people, the heartbreak of not being able to have a child. He feels very tone deaf to me on so many of these issues, on whether it's not, you know, you should stay in an abusive relationship. Right. And, you know, all these other points that he's making, obviously, when it comes to reproductive rights, he's out of step with the majority of Americans. So they're starting to feel, which is interesting, given the previous candidate, Joe Biden, who I think very highly of, but they're starting to feel old and crusty and out of it.
Yes. And you know what? Not nimble. Like the thing that I have been loving about watching the Harris campaign, they're moving at a clip. Like they are building the plane as they are flying the plane, and they are still able to communicate with people. Her ads, her new ad, which came out yesterday, which is a take on a Trump ad, the social media that they're doing.
They're on fire. My 28-year-old daughter was like, Kamala's social media presence is amazing.
They're communicating on every level.
And they're very clever. They're very funny. Who's doing that, by the way? Do you know who's
I don't know, but
social media?
They deserve a raise.
They're crushing it.
I am reposting a lot of things, which I'm like, you know, because I also walk a fine line of having worked on so many campaigns and knowing 100 days, a lot can happen. Right. And so I never want to get into this like, we're good. They're killing it. They're killing it right now. There's a long way to go. Oh, one thing we have to talk about. They announced yesterday that they will be doing an event with their VP pick next Tuesday week in Philadelphia. So here are my questions for you.
Okay.
So they're doing it in Philly. Do you think this is a head fake and it is not Shapiro? Or is it like weird to do it in Philly and it not be Shapiro?
I think it's a head fake.
You do?
I do.
Do you think it's Gretchen Whitmer?
No.
I have to tell you, at this point, I'm like, I don't know, maybe America's ready for two women. The Veep comedy series aside, when they were like, America's worked too hard to have two women in office together. But and then they're hitting the ground running. They're doing a battleground state tour.
Tell me the states they're going to. Michigan, Wisconsin. Are they going to Arizona?
Michigan, I might get this wrong. Michigan, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Georgia, Nevada, Arizona. I think I got that right.
Yeah.
Which to me, that says hustle. Which I love to see. You know, I like to see people who are working for every vote, which I also think shows the American people. She's hard. I think that fundamentally the American people want to know who's ever going to be in that office is a hard worker. And I think that this shows that she's busting ass.
Yeah, I think so too. And let's talk about the vice presidential pick.
Okay.
So Roy Cooper of North Carolina pulled out. Yep. Andy Beshear is in. Mark Kelly is in.
Yep.
Josh Shapiro is in.
Yep. And
Gretchen Whitmer has basically said no.
She's out. I think she said that she didn't want to be considered. And I think the last person who's been on all the big screens is Tim Walz from Minnesota.
Now, he's kind of a latecomer to the list. Tell me a little bit about Tim Walz and why he's suddenly everywhere. And you said he's done a lot of cable, so you say that probably indicates he's not.
I think that's if I had a spreadsheet, I'd be like, okay, too much cable means he's probably knows it's not him, right? Oh, and Mayor Pete. I think Mayor Pete is still sort of top tier. Tim Walz, honestly, I remember, Katie, here's another deep cut. I remember Tim Walz specifically because if in 2006, when John Kerry was still thinking of running for president again, he made a comment that was a little taken out of context, a little bit of a gaffe, where he basically said smart people don't end up in Iraq, meaning if you're smart and educated, you don't end up in the military. And that was the end for him, remember? And that was it. He was on his way to do an event for Tim Walz, and Rahm Emanuel, who was head of the DCCC at the time, called me because I was Barack Obama's political director in the Senate and was like, honey, you got to get Barack to Minnesota. And that's literally my biggest memory of Tim Walz. But he was in Congress. He is governor. He has done amazing things in Minnesota. Minnesota has had such progressive policies put into place in the last couple of years. And he's come out as this just like rock star attack dog, but like if Santa Claus were an attack dog.
So do you think he's like one of the top 2 or 3 choices?
I don't know. I think there's probably like a top 5 right now, and maybe he's in the top 5. But you and I both know, as these things go, the only person who really knows is Kamala and the people who are vetting these people.
Right. What do you think of Andy Bashir? I know he's well thought of.
He is really a nice man. He's done great work in Kentucky, but I don't know if, and I always feel so badly ever saying anything unkind. I'm not sure what he adds to the ticket. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's lovely. He's not that well known.
I think what he adds is he's a handsome white man.
He is, but Josh Shapiro's a handsome white man. Pete Buttigieg is a handsome white man.
No, that's true. But Josh is Jewish and Pete is gay.
It's true.
I hope that doesn't have an impact, but I have to wonder.
Here is the thing. With all that we have going on, I think whoever is the easiest, with only 90 some days to go, whoever is the easiest to introduce to the American people, right? And I think the 2 people easiest to introduce are Mark Kelly, fighter pilot, astronaut, husband of Gabby Giffords.
Parents were cops.
Member of the NRA.
Yes. And I think we talked about this last week, or I did with somebody, and 74% of NRA members actually favor stricter gun laws, which is something we need to focus on. And I thought it was really interesting, by the way, just apropos of this, that Kamala Harris said she was going to ban AK-47s.
Which is great.
I thought that was great too, and very ballsy so early in the campaign.
You know what? I think that if I'm her, I'm leaving it all on the field. This isn't a time for equivocating or hedging. She's like, here's where we are. Here are the differences, right? If her job is to show contrast between she and Donald Trump, she's doing it, right?
Yeah. Did we finish the vice presidential thing?
Who do you think it's going to be?
I thought for a long time it was Mark Kelly. I would say we're friendly. Mm-hmm. And I was texting him like, so. And he obviously wasn't divulging anything. He said, I'm laying low in London. I'm dying to talk to him. I really like him. I think like his CV is sort of just what the doctor ordered, I think. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I don't know.
We will have to be texting next week when the announcement comes.
I know. I mean, somebody's probably going to find out and break the story. I think Andrea Mitchell did for somebody not too long ago. Did Andrea break the Sarah Palin? I don't remember, but she's really good and very plugged in. So I'm sure it'll get out somehow, some way.
Right.
I just don't know, but I'm excited for whoever it is. And I'm excited to see them together.
Yeah, me too.
On the trail, and to see the energy that they're going to generate. So I really don't know.
I think, you know what? I dare say it's nothing but upside of all those people on the list. Like if the lists we're hearing on TV are true, she's got an embarrassment of riches.
There was an article that said, why not Gretchen Whitmer? But I think, listen, that's a bridge too far, I'm afraid.
So wait, okay, so there's always an October surprise, right? Not always, but it is something people love to talk about. And I saw this week that Katie, Melania Trump has a book coming out this fall.
I know.
Do you think she could be the October surprise?
I can't imagine. What do you think about the October surprise that he drops JD Vance? A couple of people have asked me, do you think that Donald Trump would possibly switch his vice presidential candidate because he made this calculation when he thought Joe Biden was going to be the nominee? I think that's very unlikely. What do you think?
I think it's unlikely, but would not put it past him. Right? Mm-hmm. Like I did a lot of research on this, trying to check out if it would be possible. And there's some back and forth about how most ballots are printed by September 6th in a lot of states, and therefore it would have to happen before then. But look, Katie, he is a man who acts out of desperation. And if he sees it falling apart, and he thinks that that is the thing that will get him attention. Because right now, Katie, no one gives a shit about him. I mean, the reason that I think they keep talking about childless cat women is because they're like, I don't know, all attention's good attention. And I don't know. I
think it's also interesting that the head of Project 2025 stepped down. Mm-hmm. And I think that is because it's been a very powerful motivator for people, and Democrats are really leaning into it in terms of talking about what a second Trump term would look like. And Of course, we saw that Donald Trump was distancing himself from Project 2025. And I think he realizes it is no bueno when it comes to getting voters. And, I was reading this morning that still a lot of the architects of this whole plan and this sort of massive overhaul of government and policy and getting rid of the Department of Education and getting rid of career politicians and various departments. I think that's still going to happen, whether this guy resigns or not. But I think it signals increasing discomfort with the Republican Party that this Project 2025 is gaining traction and is too extreme for a lot of Americans.